Welcome everybody to the Rotating Tap Podcast. We've got Steve Vanderplug, Corey David, and special guests. Maybe beer people talking comedy or comedians talking beer. Listen up everybody and we'll see what you will hear. I won't waste any more time cause it's going very fast. It's the Rotating Tap Podcast.
Welcome to the Rotating Tap Podcast.
Hi there. Hello.
Very excited to be here. My name is Corey David.
I am Steve Vanderplug.
And we are at New Image Brewing Company with Jeremy and Brandon. Can you guys say hi for us? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yo, what's up? I'm Jeremy. I'm the marketing director here at New Image.
Jeremy, nice.
Tight. I like
I don't think
all
I've
that.
ever heard you call yourself Jeremy.
I don't. I usually
that
don't.
like seemed. It
yeah.
looks like it hurt a
It
little
hurts,
bit.
yeah,
as
it
you
does.
said.
Yeah, it's just farmer, right?
Just farmer. Yeah. I don't know why I said it that way.
And we got a big old truck coming in right away.
We are doing this outside,
Picking
as
up
socially
this
distanced as possible. Pretty sure
Yeah, it's wild back here in Old
janitor
Town
from the
Arvada.
building next door just tried to start a fight with somebody.
No, he was
Is that what
hanging out.
happened? Yeah, everybody's just hanging out until
Nobody
you get
knows.
hit in the face with a broom, Steve. That's how a back alley fight works. That's what we're doing right now.
Trying to steal my sunglasses with those pincher tongs.
Those are definitely the rules. I'm Brandon. I'm the founder and head brewer. Make all the beer and hope for the best.
That sounds pretty important. I think you got a pretty big role here, the brewery. So one of the things that we like to do, since this is a comedy-forward podcast, is have you guys tell us a joke.
Tell us a joke.
So who's going to go first?
Farmer.
All right, I'll go first. What's worse than ants in your pants? Uncles?
Okay.
Oh.
That's
Nice.
pretty good.
Pedophile
That's pretty
jokes.
good.
Greg one. There we go.
That is
We're on
absolutely
it.
worse. Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Although, like, an ant, A-U-N-T, isn't necessarily, like, the best thing either. I would rather take
Neither
the
is great.
bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me the bugs in my pants.
Yeah, I'd rather be devoured by fire ants than have my uncle in my pants.
Actually, one time I was doing, this is so ridiculous, I was doing this festival in San Francisco.
I thought you were going to say, so I had this wild night with my uncle.
I had this wild night with my uncle. No, I did a festival in San Francisco, and part of that festival you have to open, like, you host stand-up, but you have improv and sketch teams on. And so I brought out the first sketch team, and like 3 minutes into the sketch, and the sketch was the guy had ants in his pants. And this girl backstage leans over and she's like, he gets fully naked during the sketch. And I peeked out on the stage, and sure enough, he was butt naked, running around the audience. Like, oh, there's ants in my pants. And it was sketch, not even improv. It's the worst thing I've ever found. Like, they wrote that as a group and thought it was a good idea.
Did you get naked with him?
Not till later.
Okay.
That was the next day.
Yeah, that was the finale. That was
Yeah.
like the big posts, the after party kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, after the after party. It was in the hotel lobby.
When's the last time you were both naked in public?
Define public.
Outdoors, outside of your own home, not
Okay.
confined by four walls. But if you are confined by four walls, there's other people present.
Specifically on the back patio of New Image Brewing.
Honestly, probably not. Since I was a child, I've
What?
deep-seated Mormon issues. So I'm like,
Oh, you're Mormon too?
yeah.
Okay.
Fully
Oh,
dressed.
talked about
wow.
that?
This is a
No, I don't
connection.
think so.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm also Mormon.
Formermormonmeat.com.
They call them FOMOs. Yes. Anyway, Brandon, when's the last time you got naked?
I could pretend it wasn't at New Image.
Okay, but you don't have to.
Now, I think probably the last time was when I was like in high school. We used to go all like paddle out to this island in a canoe and camp there on the weekends, and we would just kind of like one of our things. Everyone's be naked.
Drugs were involved.
Yeah.
No, we were sober Christian kids. It was just
High on God.
only men naked above the water. You know, you got to keep Jesus in the mix.
Yeah, just tripping on Christ. That makes sense. I understand. Christy Buckley's in the house.
Oh.
She's our official fact checker for the episode. Thank you, Christy. Appreciate it.
You've heard her on previous episodes, such as number 16.
Do you remember the actual number?
I think that's it, but I'm not sure. We only have like 18 episodes.
That's still
so
a decent amount.
Yeah.
You sound disappointed by that.
I don't.
Yeah,
Sometimes I know
yeah.
facts that I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a fact, though.
Yeah, like the Earth is flat. Like you're not proud of that, but you know it.
Exactly, yeah. I'm not thrilled, but We gotta know the truth, right? They're trying to make us think this is a round planet.
Yeah. Quick hot take. Both of you guys, flat or round Earth? What do you think?
Flat.
Okay, good.
Yeah, square.
Yeah, there we go.
So it's flat 4 times.
Yeah.
Just
Go for
depends-
cubic Earth.
Just depends on what edge you're on.
Yeah.
Hey, Brandon, before we forget, you can't get out of telling a joke, so you gotta let us know what you
God
think.
damn it.
Yeah, that's right.
You threw a butt stuff joke on the pod before we actually started recording, which is disappointing. You wasted it, but
That's true, I did. Yeah, I think right now I just got like, what's up?
What?
The sky.
Okay.
That's the kind of game that I'm coming with when we're talking.
Yeah, comedy's hard.
Me coming up with comedy.
Sounds like you learned
That's the
that
point, yeah,
being
comedy
naked
is-
on an island with a bunch of other Christian boys. Is
Oh
that
yeah,
what
totally.
you learned
What's
Very-
up?
very Lord
Not
of the
my
Flies.
penis.
Yeah.
All right. You said you have like more of a dark comedy, like some darker jokes too, right?
No, I mean I have one that's like.
Yeah. What's up? The sky when it's dark out.
Hey, riffing
That's
and
like-
raffing. That's why we're
That's
here.
a dark joke.
It's like one of those things where like a lot of the jokes that go through my head are like they're jokes that like I'd say to myself in my head, but I'm like, if you said that out loud, that'll be like one of those things that's on a podcast that people are like
Yeah, that's how we get
writing
you
articles about.
Yeah.
And so
The
just
old
gonna-
Joey Diaz of the Rotating Tap podcast.
Yeah, somebody's gonna find this 10 years from now and be like, "Hey, remember when that guy talked about that shit?"
It'll probably be me that gets canceled. Let's face it.
I wish
if there's
it would've
anything to
happened already.
cancel,
Yeah, I'm sad it hasn't happened yet.
there's probably nothing to.
Yeah, just like I have to
Nothing.
keep
Yeah,
hanging out
give
with
it
you.
time.
Yeah, we'll make something up.
yeah.
Okay, sweetness. So one of the things that we like to do is talk about something you guys are really proud of and a beer that you think is really cool that you want people to pick up when they get here. But we're going to get to that in a second because we just want to get you guys kind of buzzed first.
Get
So we're going to
buzzed.
do our
Drink.
chuggable beer.
Yeah, time to drink.
Yeah. So for the
Chug it
guys
really
that
fast.
don't know, we keep a running leaderboard of the comics that we have on and the brewers and the marketing folks like Farmer, whoever's on the show. We chug a beer and then we time it, and then we have the top 10 leaderboard that we post on social media. If people pick a beer that's over 8%, they get 3 seconds off their time. Doesn't sound like you guys opted for that today, right?
No.
Smart.
Something
That's a good
easy,
move.
Yeah.
something smooth sipping. Okay, so here's the way it works. You're gonna start drinking. Steve's gonna time it.
And
I'll
hopefully
provide-
I don't mess up like last time.
Yeah, we'll provide some color commentary, and then you tell us what the beer is first, and then you describe it immediately after. So we do encourage burping. We encourage some belching. Belchability is a big part of this and something you should be proud of. So who wants to go first?
Might as well.
Brandon,
I
stepping
ate
up
shit
to
on the
plate.
chug portion, so I might as well show up for the chug.
Oh no, my sanitary wipes are getting away.
Don't you guys just love like this new outdoor reality that we have?
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be great until August, or through August rather. But I like the great outdoors. You know, it's nice to connect with nature.
Yeah, you're not
in
gonna
the
say
alley
that.
of Old Town Arvada.
We're not going to say that in February.
Of
Yeah.
course not.
This is the shadiest place in town, probably, right? There's no alleys in Arvada.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what could happen back
Not
here.
to mention all the shade.
Yeah. Nice.
Ah.
There's a good one again.
Coming in with a dark joke.
Cha.
Dim joke.
Yeah,
Dimmed.
yeah,
Slightly,
dark,
not
slightly
quite.
dampened.
Yeah.
More of a dimmer switch.
Sunbright.
Jeremy, you can also pour yours already if you
okay.
wanna.
Yeah. All right, Brendan, tell me what you're drinking, and then chug, and then describe it after.
Alrighty, so I'm drinking Llama Bite. It's our Czech Pilsner.
I love the
And,
can. I love the art on it.
Yeah, we were specifically very inspired by like Cotopaxi branding
Yeah.
when we came up with this can, as well as the name came from a quote from that Ford versus Ferrari movie that Matt Damon made.
Oh yeah.
After the scene when he fist fights Christian Bale. Anyway,
Not too many details. Get to chugging, and we can talk about it afterward.
Shut
Alright.
up and
Yeah,
chug
shut
that
the hell up.
beer.
Shut the hell up and chug. All
Whenever
right,
you're ready.
ready? All right, here we go.
It's like he's going cliff
Oh,
jumping. He had
this
to
is-
really brace himself for this.
Somebody
and
went to
doing
college.
pretty well. I
Yeah,
have a
all
feeling
right.
this is how he drinks beers out of the fermenter too. He just opens it up, puts his mouth underneath
Ugh.
like a 7-Eleven slushy. That's pretty good. You should be proud of yourself. So tell us a little bit more about this beer because you were gushing about it. Thank you.
There it is. There it is.
Whew.
We're
All right.
doing it.
Damn.
God, that beer's so fucking good. Is the first thing. Like, I love this beer. So I really what got me into making this beer in the first place was, obviously as the weather was heating up, and without like a bunch of travel and stuff, I got back more into like distance running and trying to get back in shape for mountain bike season. So I was looking for something lighter to drink, and ended up just kind of randomly grabbing some of the 4-pack cans of Pilsner Urquell that were starting to become available. Like, it's starting to show up in 4-pack cans now, which is really cool.
Classic.
And so I was drinking that and just really digging it. Like, it's kind of like in the same way that slow pour has like such a unique character to it. Like, Pilsner Urquell has a really distinctive character to it, and I was just drinking so much of it, just like ruminating over like, what is it that is so unique about this? And ultimately, through just kind of researching that beer as well as that style in general, determined that it was like a really like kind of malt derivative flavor difference that really separated it so much from the German Pilsner. And so decided to kind of, without going the super traditional route in terms of the brewing method, try to piece together a recipe that would use a little bit of traditional methodology as well as just take advantage of some of like the commercially available stuff now to make something that fits that kind of profile of being a little bit more like malt and melanoidin forward lager, but that's just super fucking easy to crush.
Yeah, so when you say mixing like some traditional methods with some new technologies and methods, like what is it that you'd modernize with to make this beer stand out?
Right. So, traditionally speaking, you'd do like 100% Pilsner malt and do like a triple decoction with that to really get like the malt profile.
Yeah.
We opted to do a single decoction with a mix of a few more like crystal and melanoidin malts, so we could get to a similar flavor characteristic, get some of the characteristics we get from the decoction, but meet somewhere in the middle of doing, spending 3-4 hours doing a mashing procedure.
By decoction, do you mean removing the dick from the beer, or how does it actually work?
That is 100% exactly.
I think most people call it a circumcision.
Scientific terms.
I don't.
This is a circumcised beer, is what you're saying.
This is a circumcised. Yeah, it's decocted.
It's great. It's very good.
I think that's actually foreskinning.
Yeah, that's it. Dark jokes.
Yeah.
Hey. All right, sorry. Continue.
Yeah. No, I mean,
meant to
so
interrupt, but I just
decoction. Decoction's where you take a portion of the mash during the saturification rest and then boil it off in order to disable the enzyme and then mix it back in to raise the overall temperature of the subsequent mixture. And so traditionally speaking, you'd start at a lower temperature, take a smaller portion of the mash, heat it up, boil it, mix it back in, do that a few times, and each iteration adds to the 1, 2, 3 up to a triple decoction for like a more traditional Czech pills. So for this one, we took a higher percentage of the mash, heated up for a longer period of time, mixed it back, and just did a single decoction that way. So the idea is just to get a little bit more like kind of a crystallized sugar character during the mashing process, by taking the grain during its steeping time and heating it up and causing a more intense Maillard reaction during that time. So we kind of met in the middle with doing a little bit of the traditional method and then just using some further modified malts where they're effectively kind of accomplishing the same goal but through kilning techniques rather than mashing techniques.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to light lagers like this, it's the first stage is like don't fuck it up, right? Because it's so easy to notice off flavors and whatnot. And then after that, it really comes down to, it seems to me anyway, like very nuanced changes to really make it stand out from what else is out there.
I think that's true, but sometimes I feel like this whole like, man, like, the real test of a metal for brewers if they can make a lager thing is like so overstated. Like, there's so much stuff that's, I think, like very voodoo-y still about the craft industry where it's like you can't use Brett in a clean brewery and lagers are so hard to make. Like, I feel like most competent brewers, like, someone who's spent a year working at Rock Bottom knows how to make a good lager. I just think that there's been so many people that went, from a 5-gallon homebrew setup to like an unjacketed plastic fermenter that couldn't make anything taste good for so long that this commentary got built into the craft industry that's like, yeah, it's like so hard to make a lager. It's like there's like the most information out there about how to make a lager. It's what we've been making with the most technique and discussion and scientific data. Like basically all the usable data that we have in a textbook about beer making is about lager making. So if anything, so long as you can just do the fundamental basics correctly, making a good lager, maybe making a world-class lager is difficult, but making a passable lager, I don't I think that the discussion around that being such a huge accomplishment is voodoo that needs to be disbanded, because it's just like, I don't know, like a competent brewer can
You're getting a clap from over there. Some people just suck at it, though. That's the thing.
I guess
Some
so.
people just suck.
And
What can you
and
say? Some people don't know how to make scrambled eggs, Brandon. I don't know. I don't know what to
It's
tell
like
you.
comedy where Corey David's passable as a comic.
Yes.
I am just unbearable.
Try not to fuck anything up, and then there's nuance in between that sometimes stands out and makes it memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. Farmer, I think it's your turn.
All right.
Oh, who's a
So
thirsty
what do you?
boy?
So just to let everyone know, you're
Yeah.
drinking the same thing.
I'm drinking
right?
the same thing. I'm just gonna preface it. I'm really bad at this.
Yeah.
Like not good at it. So I'm looking to get the longest.
You sound
time.
like me before I have sex.
All right.
Just
Ready?
drink it already.
Yeah.
Not bad. A little soft sip.
This
Not much
isn't
of a
as
throat
bad
opener,
as-
more of a delicate kiss of the lips
Yeah.
onto the rim
a
of the
little
glass.
Smoochy.
Yeah. I was gonna say just like
Really,
that. Like
he's
he's
lost
kissing
it.
his
Take a break.
grandma.
He's got to take a breath.
Like kissing Nana on Mother's Day. It's like so good to see you. I got
I
a little
gotta
bit of a
laugh.
break, taking a
Yeah.
breather. I get it. You
Yeah,
know, this is
exhausting.
long work.
It's only like 94 degrees
I'd say
out
it's
right
more
now.
of yeah.
so.
I was gonna say like he needs any excuses to just pound this thing.
Hey, another break. All right.
All right, no, yeah, we're almost done.
You look
It's
like
almost
me
there.
in
You
my
might have
day
thought we
job.
had a break in the action, but no, we did not. We just haven't finished it yet.
All right.
Farmer,
Oh, there we
hey, got it.
go. All right.
And that concludes our podcast for today. That took way too much time.
I'm going to go ahead and say that not everybody here drinks at the same pace.
sitting here that whole time feeling like the impulses that have been embedded in me by like going out to dinner with my dad for years. I'm like, you gonna finish that?
Yeah. Well, you can definitely tell who's in marketing and who's on the brewing side.
Yeah, you can tell who has a problem.
Yeah, somebody's been
and
passing.
who's an adult.
Yeah, somebody's been passing the idea ball around too many times. While somebody else was chugging beers.
Someone's got to do the R&D.
Making sure the quality threshold was met for everybody. All right, so where are we at on times?
So Brandon finished at 5 seconds, 5.13 seconds.
That's good.
That's
Wow, yeah.
that is enough to move into 6th place.
Hey, all
On the
right.
chain
Hey,
board.
that's
Well done.
pretty good. That's pretty good.
And Jeremy.
And now for the bad news.
Actually, I do have some good news. Jeremy actually is in first place of the worst time. Coming in at
Oh my God.
33.97 seconds.
Hey,
He's-
congratulations.
Thank you,
Farmer.
thank you.
Way to go, Jeremy.
I'm trying to get out of here with one record, and I feel great about it. So.
Yeah. Anything you want to say to the fans out there? Like, you know, the kids that really want to improve their times?
Yeah, I mean, with zero work and zero dedication, you too can get last place. So just
That's
keep
great.
on not trying. And,
Very inspirational.
yeah, thank you.
So, Farmer, tell us a little bit about the beer, like the label, the copy that's on like the side. Because do you have more of a hand in that?
Yeah, I design the majority of our labels now. So, like, I designed this one. When I came on, we had this guy who did a lot of our labels. Like, some of the stuff that's sort of still around, like the Coriolis and stuff, like some of our older labels. He did all those labels. And then probably about a year-ish ago, maybe?
Somewhere around that timeline.
I started taking on more and more of the just design. So, like Brandon was saying, we were looking at Cotopaxi bags, and we just kind of went with like the super bright colors. And
like it.
yeah, it's nice. Like Brandon, usually kind of the way we go about it is, oh yeah, I guess this one over here. Brandon and I will kind of talk and then go over some ideas for usually around like the name of a beer, and then we just go back and forth till we land on like a design that we both like, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of textures, so every time I make something, I try and throw as much texture into it as I can. So
Yeah.
it's like the background of it's got all these like weird little patterns to it and stuff. So
Yeah, I feel like you guys, more than a lot of other places, you have more more modern art, like a lot of bright colors. And is that a theme that you guys have kind of like across like most of the labels that you do, or is it? I don't know if you have like a style or a motif. That you
I feel like every single beer, like sometimes I have a really weirdly distinct vision for the packaging that I'll convey to Farmer and he'll actualize, and then sometimes I have absolutely no idea what to look for, and we'll just kind of like shoot the shit on Slack for a little bit until like something kind of lands, or just literally just go off into the ether and just let him come up with whatever. I think that it's very organically just like what looks good to us, what kind of fits the idea of the beer, and like I don't know, like what we're randomly kind of into at that time. Like this is kind of a perfect example of just like one where there wasn't like a ton of build up from a branding standpoint of this beer. It's like it was a beer that I just wanted to do it. I knew it was like this isn't a beer that's gonna like rate crazy high. It's not a beer people are gonna like talk a ton about. It's just a beer I want to make, and I want to drink a shit ton of it. And I had just watched the Ford versus Ferrari movie, and I thought the llama bite quote from Matt Damon was fucking hysterical.
Do you remember it off the top of your head?
I call that one the llama bite.
It's gonna get these motherfucking llamas off this motherfucking bite.
That actually is a different beer. Now
Llamas on a plane?
our buds at
Take up too many
Listerman,
seats.
our friends at Listerman in Cincinnati, they released a beer recently that's I'm sick and tired of these motherfucking IPAs from this motherfucking brewery.
That's good.
That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
and it's like the can art is incredible. It's like Samuel Jackson on a plane with a lightsaber, and it's like all like every Sam
Hell
Jackson
yeah.
movie. There's like all these visual references in the label. It's super sick. We've got a collab coming out with them really soon. It's gonna be a really fun one too.
What, Samuel L. Jackson?
Yes, exactly.
That would be
good.
That's
Dude,
a
he
dream.
says yes to everything.
Yeah, he's got to make that money.
That's how we got Jurassic Park. He's just like, yeah, give me in. I got a targeted ad, and it
From
was.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh man, I wish. He just calls me. He doesn't need to advertise to me.
Steve, I got a fucking
He's
problem.
got my number. No, it was from Oscar Blues. I got a targeted ad, and they're clearly rebranding right now. And
Man, you really came out of left field with that one. What?
Well, we're talking about labels. It's not that crazy.
Okay.
Like this. This is a nice label on a can. You have a label of douchebag. We all are talking about labels.
Listen, I was just born this way. I'm like Lady Gaga.
But it was something I wanted to bring up also because Farmer used to work for Oscar Blues. But their rebranding, I gotta say, is terrible because they kept like Goodnight pretty much the same, and Dale's is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But everything else is like new and artsy, like bright, vibrant logos, and it's like that's never what I would want from Oscar Blues. Like it just doesn't seem to fit their personality like it
Steve
does
hates
yours.
art. Everybody knows that.
Art's fine, you know. Little
He hates music. He hates culture.
yeah. I hate everything.
Yeah.
Except coronavirus. I love that. We're best friends.
You look like an evil villain that lost his job.
What makes you think I'm not? I am currently on unemployment. So
We'll get back to Oscar Blues in a second, but I did want to ask, like, do you guys have like a label? Do you have a label that came out that you were the most happy about, like that you were most like stoked that when you saw it, like from idea to actually hitting the shelves?
I did. For me, it was it just came back out recently, but I like Genetic Nurture. That was like my favorite label that I've done. But I just thought it looked really cool, and it's just like a bunch of DNA strands. But that was the one I liked the most. I don't know. It just looked super cool. It's sometimes when it goes from like your computer screen to a printed can, there's something lost sometimes. But that one just came out super rad. I really like that one.
Nice.
I'm like pulling up the Instagram because I want to vet my own recollection on
How
this.
do I pick my favorite kid?
I know, right?
Yeah.
However do
The one
you
that
do
cries
so?
the least. That's how. The one that's not a fussy eater and doesn't give you a shit every time you go to a restaurant. That's the favorite label.
You know, it's kind of funny because it's like definitely not the most like visually challenging label that we've done in a long time, but
That's what
I
people
love-
refer to Steve, visually challenged.
yeah.
Not easy on the
I,
eyes.
I've been going after. There's a comic who voluntarily wears an eye patch on stage, but he's an anti-masker, and so I photoshopped the eye patch over his mouth, and can't stop trying to get people to send it. He blocked me for it. He blocked me, and I'm like encouraging everybody to send him that picture.
Carry on, Brett.
Speaking of visually challenged,
yeah, I love the double can. Like it's just like it's very visually striking.
Yeah.
It's like definitely not the most like technically crazy design that you've pulled off in like the last year by any means, but I don't know, it's just like really well done. I
Just
love.
speaks to you.
Yeah.
That's how art works.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
how it happens.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right.
I just
so
prefer when the art is wrapped around something that I can drink that has
that
alcohol.
sounded
Yeah.
okay. Until you said the last part, that sounded gross. Or at least sexual in nature. Depends on your preference. So before we get to the Oscar Blues thing, because I know you want to talk about it, and the only reason I'm skipping it for right now is because I just poured a beer and I don't want it to get warm. So we do have a guest beer. We'd like to bring something on for you guys to drink that's from somebody else, and we just had a pretty limited release of the Alchemist Heady Topper.
Oh yeah, we got some. That's right.
Yeah. So I was pretty stoked to get this, and cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Share this with y'all. Now I have a personal affinity for this beer just because I grew up near the Vermont border. We used to be able to get this fairly regularly. So regardless of whether it holds up against what other hazy IPAs are out there now or how the style has kind of shaped itself to this point, it's always going to have a nostalgia factor for me that I just can't pass on. But you had mentioned, Brandon, you had mentioned before we started the show that you kind of tried to model one of your beers after this, which is an amazing beer in and of itself. It's an East Coast Transplant, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so interesting, like drinking this again, and so a disclaimer I'll put out there is that like having had Heady Topper shipped to me at different points in my life versus like drinking it just locally in Vermont, I've always felt like there's some kind of difference there, like whether it's just the way it travels or what age it was or whatever the uncontrolled variables were. I don't know. A memory is fallible for sure, but this definitely does not like feel like the beer I remember.
Sure.
We're also supposed to be drinking it from the can.
So yes, supposedly, but I don't think that passing it around Catholic Mass style would be the way.
Is that
I
like
told you I love coronavirus.
So I think the whole drink from the can thing was kind of started at a time where, like, 'cause there's a lot of like hop proteins that like kind of coagulate and then it just kind of float around in there. So I think it was for not having to explain what that is to everybody. I think that was kind of why, because I can't imagine that when they say it's for aroma purposes, but everything about a can says there's like no aroma points like at all. Like you got this like tight, like really tight funnel.
I definitely there's valid arguments for both sides. I mean, the moment you pour something out of a can into a glass, the most volatile aromas are going to escape as the CO2 nucleates, and those aromas are pushed out. So you could theoretically capture more aroma by not transferring from one vessel to another. But you have to take, like, when you take the experiential factor into account and like the amount of headspace that's available for things to like sit and concentrate, it's a little bit of a wash. And I think that like the former aspect that you focus on is more accurate, which is that like especially early on with hazy IPA, people were so all about just beer, like clear beer, filtered beer. Everything looked professional. It was like all the beer used to wear suits. Yeah. And like now the beer's like got dreads and
as
it's
a
just
van, like farmer.
Yeah.
just
living in a van.
Living that sprinter life.
Being an artist.
Yeah. So I used to work for Sierra Nevada, and when they came out with Hazy Little Thing, the beer tasted like any other hazy IPA that was out on the market, but it was clear. Like the first couple of iterations of it, they couldn't really dial in that suspension where they get that constant haze. It would all kind of fall out. And people, the first time I was sampling people on it, everybody was essentially, this tastes great, but they were bothered by the fact that it's not hazy, which is a big flip from what it used to be, right?
Oh, yeah.
To your point, where if you had a hazy beer that wasn't a wit or a Hefeweizen before, people were skeptical about it.
I mean, back in 2015 when we were taking samples to bars of East Coast Transplant, people would laugh me out the door. I'd be like, this is bullshit. You're just like this inexperienced home brewer that doesn't know what they're doing, and you can't get your beer clear, and yada. I'm like, no, I promise you, this is like intentional. It's different. Try it. Like, see if you like it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I like this, but people won't like it. I'm like, you like it, so where does that extend to other people won't like it because I like it? That doesn't make any sense. It's
You're right.
Like not even how like psychological transference works. But no, it was so frustrating early on. People would get so butthurt about like that visual metric. But at the same time, like we are a very visual driven society. Like it's a massive part of what we consume. You look how popular Instagram is. Like we thrive and feed on the visual aspects of things. So it's natural that comes into play with craft beer and just with a ton of products beyond just the packaging, but the appearance of the actual product.
Is that why why it's called New Image?
No, actually, that was more of like kind of a personal statement of needing to make a serious change in my life because I was very unhappy where I was at.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm
now
going to
you're
go
on
ahead
to
and say
better
that it was
things.
a combination of both of it.
That wasn't even a dark joke. That was just dark. Farmer, have you had this beer before?
Yeah, I have. But I drinking it now, like I don't remember it being as like oniony. Maybe I'm just really sensitive to that.
That's the thing is, okay, so I remember having this beer not even that long ago, like 2 years ago, and I always stood by it and think it's great. No matter what people say about it, I don't really give a shit. Like, it's still a great beer. And then the drop that came to Denver, who knows, maybe it's like your palate's changed or it's just been too long since you've had it, but I felt like there was something off about it, which seems kind of hard to believe because the Kimmiches like do such a great job.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, it's like kind of like you're saying that, because I just think like our palates have changed so much, and especially this type of beer. And in Colorado, like everyone who makes this style of beer, we're all kind of using similar hops too. So like I think we've all gotten used to these certain flavors from like everyone's using like Citra and Nelson and Galaxy and Mosaic, and it's like so I think those just have such a different flavor. And I think it's what's expected. So when you have this, which I don't even know what's in this one, but I would guess
I don't remember
none
off
of
the top of
those.
my head. I mean, I would assume Citra has got to be in there, you know, because of when it came out.
Sure, yeah.
You have to consider like what hop varieties were in like big supply and readily available and
in
high
vogue.
quality
Right.
at that time, right?
I don't
think it's Citra
I
and
don't
Mosaic.
know how much validity there is to this, but I kind of remember that like at the time when this beer was like really gaining a ton of speed, Simcoe was very popular. Cascade was kind of on its way out. Amarillo was going through its like hot flash. I halfway remember that like pretty sure Simcoe and Amarillo play some part in this beer, and maybe they did, maybe they don't anymore, and maybe I'm totally misremembering that. But I feel like in the very least Simcoe was involved in some way, in a significant way, because doing hop selection for years, I'd been like kind of looking for the like heady topper Simcoe character. And if I totally misremembered its involvement in the beer, then it's just whatever. But the most recent crop that we got, I remember finally finding a particular lot that was like, oh man, like that's that distinct like aromatic note that's in that beer that's like so distinctive. So again, I don't know how much validity that has, but that's kind of like one of the things that I've always considered to be distinctive about that beer is just a particular like stone fruit peachy kind of aroma note that I personally associate with particular lots of Simcoe.
Yeah.
But back when I was doing a lot of research on this beer, I believe it was like Simcoe and maybe Citra and Amarillo that were like the big players. And that kind of makes sense for when this beer was really popularized.
Sure, like the hop varieties that people could get their hands on. So when I had East Coast Transplant, which I think is a fantastic beer, I had to me it actually tasted a little bit more like Sip of Sunshine than it did with Heady Topper. But then again, who knows at this point? Because I had Sip of Sunshine more recently than I'd had Heady Topper at that point when I think I had East Coast Transplant for the first time. But it's a fantastic beer. And one of the things you had said before the pod as well. Like you guys focus, a big part of your focus is on hazies. You do a bunch of other really great styles too, like Llama Bite's fantastic. You have your kombucha beers and sours that you do; they're wonderful. But you'd made a point to say that we try to really nail the hazy thing. Mm-hmm. So to me, when it comes to hazy beers, once you reach a certain quality threshold, a lot of them wind up tasting exactly the same. But there's a big gap between the lower quality threshold, which all taste the same but equally shitty, and then there's the higher quality threshold where you just get it's exceptional flavor, the attenuation's there, the body's there, aroma, all that stuff, but they all taste fairly similar. Like, what is it when you say like we're trying to really nail the hazy thing that you do differently to make your beer stand out from the crowd?
You know, it's become such a like hard thing. Randomly, I was thinking about this earlier today.
What a coincidence.
But yeah, I know.
It's almost like you had to get ready to be on a podcast.
No, it's funny because it just organically, it just popped into my head like, if someone were to ask that question, how would I answer it? And the thing is that it's almost hard to say at this point because, I mean, I started brewing hazy IPA in 2013 in Pittsburgh, and at the time it was like a very just inspired new thing that didn't have a whole lot of boundaries or comparisons. And then, you know, fast forward to 7 years later, and we just tried so many little things and changed so many little things, and there's not exactly like specific hops that always work, but there are certain hops that work better than others for hazy IPAs. There's certain malt profiles that work better than others. There's certain kind of like adjunct malts that work really well in hazy IPAs that you may or may not expect and that seem like easy substitutes, but they're actually like very distinctive. The water profile is something that's taken a really long time to dial in, and even using adjunct sugars has been had a big impact. So it's a lot of like really small things that end up having the end effect. But ultimately, like, I think that one of the things that might be the most practical difference is I think the people that are really doing hazy IPA well have kind of had to truly let go of kind of the previous philosophy on elegant being limited exclusively to ingredient usage and letting saturation kind of become a norm. Because like saturation and inefficiency are sort of a characteristic of hazy IPA that's really important, and allowing the product to drift towards that reality. You can still do it in an elegant, nuanced way, but rather than trying to like, let's get as much as possible out of as little as possible, that philosophy I think makes worse hazy IPAs. I think let's use as much as it takes to make the thing we really want to get. That philosophy makes better hazy IPAs.
Okay, cool.
I'm not normally one to gear towards the end of excess, but it's just kind of a reality about that style that seems to have really been like a delineation that if you really try two side by side and have that realization that like one of these is just exceptionally better, that approach from either side will generally create that difference.
Yeah.
Regardless of all the other small nuanced approaches. That's kind of the big dividing line.
Well, it sounds like you haven't given it any thought at all.
No. I
that's great,
definitely sleep.
Some from time for like 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And then I get up and go for a 20-mile run.
Totally.
Yeah, you got to burn off the hazy calories, man. They are full of carbs. It'll do that.
Much carbs.
Steve, do you want to get to, because I know it was a hot button issue.
Yeah, I want to talk about Oscar Blues.
He's got
I want to talk.
Do you want to pour the guest beer? I'm sorry, not the guest beer. Do you want to pour the feature beer first so we can at least sip on it while you rant, or do you want to rant first?
It's not going to be like a long rant, okay? It's not going to be
All right, we'll find out.
Feel free to pour your next beer whenever you feel. Here's the thing. And so Jeremy used to work at Oscar Blues, and I still like Dale's Pale Ale. It's, I've obviously grown into like other beers, but every experience I've had with Oscar Blues has been terrible. And mainly, I didn't realize you guys did food here also, but their food is garbage. Their food is garbage, and
I love how you said you had to preface this rant by saying Jeremy used to work for them. All right, let's go. Like,
no, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, what the fuck? Why?
It doesn't matter.
I just don't know why you even had to throw him under the bus.
Because he doesn't work there anymore. Jeremy? How do you feel about Oscar Blues? How do you feel about Oscar Blues?
Still have a lot of friends there.
Okay. And are they in high places?
Yes.
Okay, well, you can tell them. Go ahead and you tell them that I think that their food is.
Tell them the beet salad's garbage. Will ya?
I've never had anything good at Oscar Blues. I went to the one in Lyons.
What a bold statement. I've never had anything.
Food-wise, I have it, and I've eaten there a bunch.
You don't even like the beer anymore.
Some of their beer is fine.
Okay.
It's just frustrating to see them. I feel like they're trying to expand too much too fast. Hence why the fucking Chub Burger is out of business. It was a bad idea. Also, the basement of the downtown location had some really good things going, and they just didn't want to put the effort in anymore.
How long have you been waiting to say all this?
Oh man, I dream about it every single night. I think about it all the time.
So should we rule out Oscar Blues as a potential future guest?
My will is 90% me talking shit about Oscar Blues. Give my stuff to a couple people.
That's great. I know Christy's had her own experiences with Oscar Blues as well.
I've spent hours complaining about.
You know, you've got you're 10 feet away and you've got a muzzle on. If you've got something to say, you can come over to the microphone.
You know what, everybody? They love to waste money.
Everybody
Whatever's
out
a
on the
good
patio,
choice.
line up and tell us what you don't like about Oscar Blues.
Whatever's a good choice, they'll be like, nah, things
Nah.
different than that.
We're going to open up a place literally called Chub Burger. That's so... You know what I'm thinking about when I want burgers? Chubs. What a terrible decision.
So Farmer, how do you feel about Oscar Blues?
He's got friends
to-
at high places.
You used to be, were you the marketing manager over
I was
there
the
too?
creative director.
Well, apparently all the creations.
Did you name Chub Burger? So I'm so
I
sorry.
did not. So let me.
I feel like I want to be your anger translator. Like, he's going to say it really nice, and then I'll say what.
Well, so I will say this.
Chrissy Beakley stepped into the ring.
A lot of people don't know this, but the restaurants and the brewery are like separate. Like the
Huge
restaurants are
mistake.
its own thing.
Mistake number one.
Yeah. Back when they started, you couldn't be like a restaurant. You couldn't have the liquor license as a restaurant owner and have a brewery license.
Yeah.
So they basically just split the companies off. So the restaurants are their own thing. They were run separately, run by different people. The brewery's run by its own people. So that's one. That's not a defense of the name Chub Burger, but that is just that they are separate. So the decisions made on the restaurant side are different than the brewery side.
Their fucking left hand is broken, and it doesn't talk to their right hand. Like, that's what is... They don't talk to each other. They don't even act like they're part of the same company. They, like, don't... I don't know. They, like, don't even help each other out. No, like, sometimes not at all. I don't know. It just seems like two separate companies. And also, they just... the ego of it, like, they literally just thought they couldn't fail. And it's really funny to watch them fail.
Oscar's
Christy
company.
you,
Beakley
Christy.
with the angry translation for Jeremy Farmer. Thank you, Christy.
I mean,
all right,
it's-
anything
it's-
else? Because you said this
pretty
wasn't going to
obvious.
take a long time.
I've said that, and I don't. The pork sandwich, I had in Lions was one of the worst things I've ever eaten in my entire life. They can't possibly carve that. Yeah, they changed the cheese and the nachos were always just fine.
Brendan, have you been to Oscar Blues recently?
Define recently. I'm
Between
treating this
now
like a
and the time
deposition
that
now.
You were naked in public.
Oh, but between now and then, yes.
Yes, okay.
Several times.
Yeah, several times. How do you feel about the pulled pork?
We had the pulled pork at the Christmas party, right?
We did,
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
pretty recently.
but that was the Denver location.
Yeah, that was the Denver basement,
Yeah.
as previously referred to. I mean, I had fun. At the same time,
That's a
on
great
the-
review of the pork. I had fun. I had fun at the party.
Pork was fun.
I liked the pork. That same night, I also got my dad to sing "Renegade" by Styx for karaoke with me. So
So the pork, 8 out of 10 on the pork. Would have been a 6 if it weren't for my dad singing Sticks.
Awesome. All right, so
They did take as
I can't wait to have
performers-
Oscar Blues on the podcast.
As
so you
performers,
can tell
they
all
took
of
it.
this to Dale's face.
Oh yeah, give me. He'll punch me in the face and be like, "Good night." All right.
Podcast will be 2 minutes long. This is gonna be you two duking it out on
knocked
rolling
out.
around on the ground.
I mean, I would say like one of the biggest bummers I think about it was that for that little window, it was a cool space to do cool shit.
It was amazing. Yeah,
it was
the
rad.
Black Buzzard,
Like downstairs
very cool.
was rad.
And
it was
they
fun
did
to do stuff.
They did take care of us as performers for a long time, but then they just didn't understand like our needs as performers in order to like draw
Your
a
fucking
base.
needs? What do you got, a rider now?
I've always had a writer, and 20% of my writer is saying you got to talk shit about Oscar Blues. If you want to come in the green room, you bet the password is Oscar Blues is blowing it. No, they took care of us, and they just I mean, there are certain things that we need, you know, like sound system
Love,
wise.
affection, attention,
Yeah,
the admiration of strangers,
yeah.
parking.
Parking.
Parking's a biggie.
Yeah, I mean that
Better
was
pork.
like there was that little window where it was just like a cool spot to do cool shit, and it was super fun. I mean that's how that's how I met Christy. Was before we opened it, because I switched jobs from the creative director to help open that venue, and like I got introduced to Christy and Janae, and we were just kind of pitching ideas about shows, and so we started off doing. It was originally just going to be, I think, was it just going to be open mic at first, and then we decided to do the weekly show. And
Christy Buckley
yeah.
says it was supposed to be Pussy Bros and then a mic, and
Yeah.
they were just throwing money around, so they wanted to do more.
well, yeah, so we ended up doing like Christy and I did a show every week, Janae and I did open mic every week, and then we did a monthly Pussy Bros show, and it was super fun. I mean, we had so many dope shows there, and then when I was out probably like 2 years ago, I came over here shortly afterwards, but I didn't really go to any of the shows after that, so I don't know how things were then.
Well, you guys run, I mean, before obviously everything got shut down, you guys were running a comedy show here, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Christy was, yeah.
Yeah, once I moved over here, Christy and I talked and just wanted to do shows together again. So we started doing those shows. We did like almost a full year before. Yeah.
Year anniversary was supposed to be recently.
Then all this happened.
And then I think 2 weeks ago was when we had
We were supposed to
planned
do
our
that.
Old Town
Yeah,
Comedy
it was
Festival.
gonna be so cool.
I know, we were looking forward to it. It'll happen, just, you know,
Yeah.
timing is a bitch,
Yeah.
I guess.
But yeah, it's been cool because it's been super receptive in Old Town. There really wasn't anything happening like that, and so every time we've done it, it's been packed. Like super packed in there. And Christy books like amazing shows.
Great
and-
lineups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
killer lineups.
Yeah, I would agree to that even though I was never on any of them. She did do a great job.
Which is a tall order to get him to admit. All right, so do we have your permission to move on, or do you have a couple of? Do you want to go down the full menu and tell us how you feel about every item?
Oh man, no, I don't. I could fucking go on about what. I don't even know if they have pot stickers, but I'm sure they were not good. Actually, speaking of reviews, I'd like to go into one of my favorite segments.
Yeah.
We'll keep this one kind of short.
Well, we don't have to. I'd love to be able to expand upon it, but just before we do that, we did pour a new beer into our glasses. So could you guys just tell us what we're drinking and just a brief little overview about it?
Totally. So our flagship and most known probably IPA is Coriolis Effect. It's the beer we make the most of and distribute the most widely in the state. We do a double dry hop version of that as a series, and we try to feature different hops with that typically, but we recently did a version where we didn't just feature a different hop, but we also featured a different technique, and one that's really new, which is using supercritical CO2 extracted hop terpenes.
Whoa, that's a lot.
I know, it's a mouthful. And
a lot of
post chug, I was still able to pronounce all of those words, so I'm pretty proud. I think I've done enough for the day.
Take a break.
Yeah.
You're doing awesome.
Take a break.
Yeah, go have some Oscar Blues nachos. Call it a day.
Don't do it, you'll get sick.
So, for this release, we were originally just going to do a Galaxy double dry hop version of Coriolis, but we had decided to get connected to the local lab that's doing this distillation process for the hop terpenes, have them do the extraction process, and then it's really cool because, I mean, you lower the amount of, I mean, normally we're talking about like a 50-pound case of hops that would go in for, or actually I guess closer to like 60, 70 pounds of hops would go into a batch the size of this one, and that got distilled down to like 300 milliliters of terpene solution, and the yield was way higher. The flavor is very distinctive, but it was kind of cool because, you know, the baseline is this beer is just Coriolis effect. We make a ton of. You can get it any time to compare side by side. The only difference between this beer and that beer is that 360 milliliters of hop terpene content. So I think it's pretty incredible to see what, and like to put it in perspective, like 360 milliliters, like half of a water bottle going into a 1,000-gallon tank is what made this a completely different animal from our flagship. And
now, how is this different than, you know, a beer like Odell Rupture that uses like powder, like it's like a
right? So that
more of a powder, or there's powders, there's oils, there's for all different kinds of lupulin. So like, how is this different?
I think Rupture is like a lupulin powder, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, but there are other like hop oils that have existed before this, right?
Right. Well. Yeah, so there's been some different extracts that are mostly like hot side usable. Like there's been some supercritical CO2 extracts on the market for a while, and kind of one of my rubs with a lot of them for a long time is, and actually what's made this one particularly viable is we're working with a local lab that's doing the distillation, so we can take the hops that we selected and have them distill those rather than kind of reaching into the black box of like, you know, somebody who they might know their way around supercritical CO2 extraction, maybe they don't know their way around hop selection. So we're kind of getting whatever they think is good Galaxy or good Citra and distilling that, and whatever their handling is like prior to that. With these guys, we have the opportunity to say, hey, this is our contract Citra that we selected. Let's, you know, just process this and give it back to us. So we have a little bit more metric and control there. But speaking specifically like Rupture, so lupulin powder is kind of eliminating a lot of the vegetal component, but you still have mostly terpene compounds, but still not in a solubilized form with a certain amount of vegetal matter still present. And one of the tricks with terpenes is most of the flavor active compound in hops is the terpenes. You get a certain amount of acidity contributed by alpha acids and so on and so forth.
So terpene is predominantly flavor and aroma, not much bitterness. Like
right.
Little to no bitterness on terpene, or is it?
Little to no. I mean, all the aromatic particles have different properties and different perceptions, but yeah, mostly flavor and aroma. And so the difference between basically hop powder or like cryo pellet type product versus a terpene distillate is really the solubility. So with the powdered hop products, you've got less vegetal matter and more surface area, so you still get some of the yield benefits, but terpenes being the most like flavor active molecule in the process of imparting hop flavor, very water insoluble, super hydrophobic. They just do not dissolve well, and that's kind of what you really get with the extracted terpenes is that you get about like a 95 to 96% extraction rate from the base product, whereas I honestly don't know if you compare like T90 traditional hop pellets to cryo type pellets or lupulin powder, what the difference in extraction ratio is, but the terpenes remain really insoluble in beer, and there's a way to treat the extracted terpenes to make them damn near 100% soluble so that you get a really prolific utilization, as well as you're able to solubilize compounds that would not otherwise be soluble in beer. So there's some distinctive aroma and flavor characteristics you can get by using terpene distillates that you're not able to get by just trying to solubilize vegetal hop matter in a beer.
Farmer?
Yeah, where's Buckley to translate?
Yeah, I'll bring in Christy real quick.
Yeah. Bring in the ringer. No, that's one of the things. Like, so there's new techniques and new ingredients that are being presented in the industry all the time, and I know terpenes is one that's popping up on menus all over the place. So actually, I do really appreciate you breaking that down a little bit and letting people know what it's all about.
Yeah, they're fun.
They're fun. It's good. It's another thing.
If you could break it down to one thing, it's that they're fun.
They're fun.
Shit, that's all you had to say?
Beer is delicious.
The pork, had a good time, had fun.
They have a lot of practical.
Pork fun, terpenes fun.
They have a lot of practical benefits. I mean, the yield is way better. The methodology. I mean, you compare sending somebody up on a scissor lift with 360 milliliters of fluid versus multiple 44-pound boxes. The physical labor involved with using them and the time involved with using them is much lower. There's a lot of practical aspects, but something that, I kind of mentioned this before the pod, but I'll mention it again now, is that I think a lot of people are looking purely at the practical advantages of hop terpenes. And right now, I don't want to ever say that we're the first or the only people to ever think a certain way, but
you will.
Right now, based on what products are available in the market, I think we're among the first to see this as, regardless of whether we can save money or be more efficient or anything else, I think there's a distinctive way to make our beer taste better, or maybe even just unique in the spectrum of hazy IPAs, by really pursuing what we can do with this product. If we get efficiency and everything else out of that, that's great. But being distinctive and being able to really elevate the product is kind of my main goal. And that seems to be kind of like I was talking earlier with hazy IPA specifically. There's kind of these two ways to approach it, where you can try to minimize your inputs and maximize your outputs, or really just see the inefficiency as kind of part of the beauty of the art of it. And we're sort of taking that same approach to something that was created to be an efficiency-oriented product.
Yeah.
And
really exploring the space.
Yeah. So that, I think, is our difference in approach, and also I think it will show up in the final product. But
yeah, it tastes amazing. It tastes great. It's
very good. Yeah.
Well, Coriolis Effect on its own is a wonderful beer, and this one is Galaxy terpenes, right? And Galaxy is one of my favorite hop varieties out there right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if the yields have been higher, because I've been seeing it a lot more in this past year, where it was kind of like a niche hop before that. Mm-hmm. But it seems like everybody has Galaxy at this point, or it's popping up a lot more, which I'm a fan of.
I think there was just a liquidity scare for the supplier or suppliers, because it's, where it seems like there's been a little bit better negotiation happening with the farmers in New Zealand. It does not seem to be happening that way in Australia. A lot of the bigger suppliers are kind of breaking their long-term relationships with Australian producers because of that, because it's just kind of become this over-leveraged market where they're like, yeah, we can just continue to charge $1 a pound more every year for no additional work. Whereas the New Zealand farmers seem to be taking steps to actually get you into a contract for those varietals at a reasonable price, even though Nelson and Galaxy, in my opinion, will sell pretty much the same way to a consumer. Sure. Galaxy's costing twice as much at this point. And it doesn't really need to. And so, but I think the recent availability has more to do with the kind of middleman brokers trying to act in good faith at this time, when they know a lot of brewers just need more stuff to get people excited and throw their customers a bone and say, hey, look, we've got a stockpile of this. We're making it available to you guys, even though normally we'd have maybe more strings attached to this. Maybe they're just trying to liquefy more of their inventory into cash, because it's a good time to do that.
Whereas the Aussies are just like, fuck it, man, sell it.
Yeah. Was that an accent?
Yeah.
That's right.
Tried, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Gave it a shot.
Was it an Australian one?
Yes, I think
Wow.
so. It was so quick.
It was so quick I barely noticed.
I'd go for my Australian accent, but that's another one that brings up that's a joke that I don't want to know.
Now you have to.
Nope.
Describe llama by using an Australian accent.
Once the mics are off.
Smart. It's smart.
One of our favorite things to do, because it's a bit cathartic for the brewers and the people involved, is talk about your guys' bad reviews.
You're in a Yelp hotbed right here in Arvada.
We like to think that, because Arvada is a bunch of pretentious motherfuckers. But we like to think...
Bordeaux's. It's a lot of Bordeaux.
I think Arvada is a little pretentious. Just a touch. Not a lot, but a little bit. So... one of the things that we love talking to amazing brewers. I guess Ed mentioned before, you guys are one of my favorite breweries in the greater Denver area. But there's always people that don't have a good time and have bad gripes for no good reason. And we like to point this stuff out because people are idiots.
Yeah.
So, Steve, do you got something queued up?
I got a few, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and read this first one because it's very recent, a very
Is it yours?
fresh wound. No.
This is like, are you just reading your review?
Are you reading your review of Oscar Blues right now?
Unfortunately, Google makes me have to force a start. No, I'm just kidding. They're not that bad. This is a review left 3 weeks ago here by a gentleman named Robert. Robert gave you guys 3 stars, and the review is limited menu due to COVID. 3 stars. And I gotta say, Robert,
Nailed it.
the review part is correct, but the rating is is he rating COVID? I don't understand.
Every establishment gets -2 stars because of
Because
pandemic.
they can't just be normal hours and have
Yeah.
normal selection?
Yeah, so can you please tell people why you guys decided to be safe and not offer like a regular menu right now?
Yeah, why didn't you just guys throw a rave and just have
Yeah.
everybody-
I mean, there's certainly like the pragmatic issues with having a full menu right now, but like I remember watching that one roll through and just being like, what fucking rock do you like? Where are you right now? Like, come on, man! I'm so stoked. Like, all right, the other day I went to Hops and Pie, and we got that crazy thunderstorm on Friday evening. I just stood on the table under the umbrella, and I'm like, this is fine. Like, I'm so happy to be outside my house.
Just out of your
I'm just-
normal stimuli.
I don't understand, like, who are these people that take themselves so seriously that it's like post-pandemic, whether you think it's a hoax or not, like, you can observe the reality and the impact it's had on all of the businesses in the hospitality sector. And you get outside your house, and within the first week of places being reopened, your first thought is just like, limited menu. Like,
Man.
dude, have you read an article in the last like 6 months? I mean, friggin' or 3, I guess, is more relevant. But like, meat packing plants have been shut down. Like, the prices of stuff's all over the place. The possibility of ordering the right stuff has been impossible. And we got no heads up too. Like, it takes us 3 weeks to make a packaging plan because that's just the way it works in our industry. Given that that's our manufacturing timeline. So, yeah, it's gonna when we get notified on the 24th that we can reopen the 27th, even though we chose to wait till the 3rd of the following month, we're still 2 weeks behind on our ability to actually be like restocked in the way that we want to. So like, you know, you look at those and you're just like, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
just
Is Yelp 4 or 5 stars?
5.
Is it 5?
I'm also
Damn.
on Google reviews.
Oh, okay.
I do think that's great. That's crazy that like you've had nothing to do, and the first thing you're gonna do is expect everything to just go back to normal.
I was
Like,
really
you guys didn't have any limited released barrel aged things.
I had
Just to
high
have-
hopes, honestly, that, you know, after people were in quarantine and things were starting to loosen and people were going to be able to start living a normal life again, people would
Be cool.
appreciate
No.
what we
No.
have in
Oh my
life
It's
God,
been
no.
the
and
opposite.
be more
Yeah.
grateful for stuff. And it has been the total opposite.
No, people
Everybody
have
is
been
angry. Everybody
so
is pent
difficult.
up. Everybody's super angsty.
No, we were having a meeting this morning
Tuesday,
with.
yeah. We had a-
we had our meeting. We
yeah.
had the meeting with our admins on Tuesday, but then we had a meeting today with staff to just discuss, like, do you feel safe serving people because there are so many altercations happening over, like, what's my
Mask.
liberty not to wear a
I can't even
mask?
count how
Like,
many times I've talked to somebody that they've told us that. 'Cause I have plenty of friends in the service
Well, now
industry.
we know you're lying. Just
Friends,
kidding.
plenty of friends in the service industry, and I feel like every person I've talked to says they have at least one person a day that throws a hissy fit about
Oh, retail
about,
too.
about the situation, just about like social distancing and about like just following some.
and-
What seems
then
weird
there's-
to me is like the frustrations they put on the businesses, but it's like the businesses are following the rules that were laid out to open. You know
Trying
what
to
I mean?
do
It's
their
like
best.
they have to
Yeah.
do what the state's
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
to do, and then they attack like the businesses like they decided to do all this stuff.
Well,
It's just-
even the few live comedy shows we're producing, like some comics are pissed. Some comics are pissed that we're doing it, even though we're following every single state
Yeah.
guideline. And the other thing too is like, not to like put pressure on other people, but like comics are coming after comics, which is bad enough. But it's also like not just the comics doing this; it's also the businesses. It's also every single person that's willing to go to a comedy show. People want it right now. and instead just like nobody can be happy with just the bare minimum. It's really depressing.
Yeah,
Really bringing this comedy podcast down.
Speaking of which, Farmer, why don't you read this next review? So why don't you read somebody's name and give the total number of stars, and then you can read it.
All right, this is Devin.
I got this one. Yeah.
Fuck Devin.
I got this
1 star and a year ago. Oh, I've read this one. Oh my god, I know this one. Yeah, this involved Mike.
Okay.
Mike's a code name for Cody.
No, it's a. Anyway,
okay.
Devin
Who's
said.
Cody?
Devin said, very hipster with pretty high-priced snack food, but pretty good beer. Don't go in and talk good things amongst your friends regarding America.
Oh, this one.
And there's the
Unless you want the waiter to ask if you're part of the Proud Boys political group. Can't even enjoy a beer without an idiot bringing politics into it, much less when a brain-dead waiter does it.
I'm just here bragging about America.
There are plenty of other breweries. Skip this one. Unless you're one of those who stick their noses in people's business and shout out your opinion when nobody asked. Yeah, so I know
if
this
you're
one.
a Proud Boy, don't go to New Image Brewing.
Not proud of being proud of boy.
This one came up because what he leaves out is all the shit he was saying that was like the
Sure.
server.
Yeah,
I'm
of
sure
course.
the
That
N-word a
doesn't
few
help your
times.
cause.
Yeah.
You tell them all the shitty things you were
Yeah,
saying.
you know, like that one word that, like,
Yeah.
even when you're like someone who is pretty comfortable dropping any amount of profanity on a regular basis, like that one word you
Yeah,
just
you
don't
don't say that
use
word.
to refer to
Yeah.
other
Well, but
people.
How come they get to say it?
So I remember. So this happened.
Oh, no,
the
not-
guy.
not
the guy
even
this
that
happened to. The guy this happened to. I remember him telling me about it because it happened like a Friday, and he was working the next Monday, and he was telling me about it because we got the review and all the shit. But the guy left out that they were straight up Proud Boys, like literally Proud Boys.
Well, also
like we're even joking with each other that we're like they basically were like, hello, I'm Devin, I'm a Proud Boy, and they were just like, oh, and he called him a Proud Boy. He's like, fuck you, and left that review. But it was like, no, you guys totally were. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
remember
the
this
reason
one.
I interjected and was like, oh, you should read this politically charged review of your business was essentially like something I've been struggling with recently is that the idea of
Black Lives Mattering? Okay, Corey, we get it.
That's a big one. That's pretty important. But just this idea that it's like not patriotic to just care about other people. Like it's not patriotic to like care about like wearing a mask in public, or it's not patriotic to like understand like why the Black Lives Matter protests are happening. And it's become this weird thing for me where people are making it a patriotic issue. And
Totally.
It's totally not.
Well,
at
and
all.
I think one of the things for us, like even before a lot of this stuff was coming up, part of New Image's whole like sort of ethos has always been around like community building and mental health and all
Thanks
this
for
stuff.
hanging out, guys.
I brought up Black Lives Matter and they laughed.
They were laughing most of the time.
But we have like
Exactly.
we have all these beers that we do with other foundations that were like literally centered around like LGBT rights and like mental health issues and community building. So for us, it was like once this sort of like took off, it was no issue for us to just like jump in and be like, we've been talking about these kind of issues for like so long. So I think it's silly. Like I think we've always had that. So when that review, I remember was like, where did you think you were? Like we're not like quiet about our feelings about these kind of issues. So when that guy wrote that, it was like, oh, fuck
Yeah,
that
of
guy.
course.
Like,
Yeah, get the hell out of
Well,
here.
you know,
totally.
it
Eat
like
shit.
congruent to that, we had a comment immediately on our Instagram post today announcing the Black is Beautiful beer. There's just like, you know, like I don't know, guys, this seems like a bad look to me, and it's like, well, fuck you.
A bad
Like,
look.
sorry,
I guess
but
no.
not,
I guess to be honest, it depends on what type of beer it is. To be totally fair, if you're putting out a regular lager called Black is Beautiful, I'm like, what the fuck is
Well, so
that?
no, this one's it's a collaboration. This brewery in San Antonio started it, and so like it's this collaborative effort with like a bunch of breweries across
Oh
the
yeah,
country.
yeah.
So they
Hundreds.
started it,
Yeah.
like hundreds of breweries.
Yeah, and they basically send out the recipe to
Yeah.
everybody.
So everyone
they can make
collaborates.
their own
Okay,
iteration
okay,
of it,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
the proceeds go to the foundation.
Cool.
But the thing is, like, especially for us, is like to what you were saying, we've always had what I refer to as a socially conscious for-profit business model. We've never wanted to be a nonprofit, never claimed to be a nonprofit, but we have a socially conscious business model. We've always, and specifically, we've been very oriented towards mental health since our founding. But like, I think that especially, you know, that's something that came up when I was 22 years old. And so, you know, as we grow as a company and I grow as a person, that kind of expands to include, like, what's relevant, what's needed, like, what needs light shed on it, because ultimately at the outset the realization was there's a platform here. People give a shit about what we have to say just because, like, we make beer, and like no one wanted to do a podcast with me when I was an engineer. You know, there's a platform, obviously, so let's use it to speak to shit that we care about.
Well, what's interesting to me too is that breweries, one of the things that people always, if you can get to the root of why people love small breweries, it's because it's a part of the community.
Yeah.
So what do you stand for, really, if you are willing to be a part of the community but then not want to make an impact on it?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is, like, people see us as such a like a one category thing where they're just like, oh, you're just like a brewery making a stand or whatever. It's like, well, I also sit on like a community board that interacts with city council, as well as the city of Arvada and the Old Town District, and you know, we have the ability to just right away, like, cool, like, what are like some of the 8 points that we could even bring up with, and as it turns out, like, Arvada PD is actually well ahead of kind of the national average on accountability metrics. But you know, I think people don't realize, like, how involved a lot of us are in our community, and like the fact that, like, I don't just make the beer recipes, like, I'm also pretty involved here. And so and also just, like, what's the purpose of sitting around and just being like, we're gonna protect our interests and not take a stand
anybody
on
that
this?
says just stick to beer, like, so you're totally missing. It's strange the most because they're sitting at a point in a V at the bottom, basically, where they say, we love local beer, but we don't want you to have a voice in the local community.
Or an
It's
opinion.
like,
It's
you can't
so
do
stupid.
that. It's like, what are you talking about? It's not like you're just walking into a building and there's taps on a wall and you can pour it yourself. It's like, no, there's people here.
Right.
There's people that live in this community, serve this community. It's a conversation space for people that want to come up with new ideas or talk about things. How can you say that it just stick to beer?
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing too, is like that's so much about, like, the foundation of craft beer and, like, where it has value. Like, if you were just speaking from, like, a marketing standpoint, like, why does craft beer have such a hold on people? Why do people care so much? And it's because it's accessible and it has, like, a soul to it.
Yeah.
And what is more representative of that than even, like, admittedly adapting and changing to social issues that you've been silent and not, you know, as woke as you could have been on. Like, and that's certainly where I stand. Like, I didn't grow up in the most woke part of the country, and I certainly have made all of it. I certainly made, like, plenty of my own mistakes along the way, but it's like, you know, I don't have a platform as a person. I have a platform as a company, and I'm willing to use that platform to just say, hey, look, like, I'm willing to acknowledge where I've not done the best job I could here, and, like, this can be a turning point. It doesn't have to just be like a one-off, like, jump on this bandwagon, go downtown and take a couple pictures kind of thing. Like, our goal too, and I think especially for us, where, like, again, paralleling off what you said earlier, being a socially conscious business model has always been a part of our ethos. So this is just kind of adding a channel. It's not even like creating a new avenue for us. But it's recognizing that, you know, we care about human wellness in general. And for the longest time, that's been kind of confined to the area of mental health. But given the climate, and maybe it just, you know, I think even at the corporate level, you can acknowledge a wake-up call to say, like, wow, maybe I didn't realize that this was still as big of an issue as it is, you know?
You know, I don't want to bring it up, but I haven't heard anything from Oscar Blues on this situation.
No, funny you say it. So I was going to bring this up because, like, one of the things I think about just reviews like this, or people saying shit in general, is, like, I know it's a dead horse, but people just say wild shit online that they would never say to you in person. They're never going to say that shit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
One of the reasons we bring that whole thing up, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, like, so I used to run the social media for Oscar Blues back when I was the creative director, and then when I moved on, some friends of mine run it now, and I remember when people were posting, like, what they were going to do in response to things, and genuinely, like, Oscar Blues, I was waiting, I was like, I can't believe they put something out, and then they did, and they created a thing where, like, they were acknowledging that, like, in the beer community, in breweries in particular, the the whiteness is very prevalent.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a dearth of like
yeah.
people of color working in the tap room
Mostly
or
white.
on
It's,
the production
it's
staff.
mostly white dudes.
It's-
And
yeah,
then
it
any
is
women,
totally-
even
yeah.
any women you see, it's mostly in the tap room
Totally.
side as beer tender or whatever.
And so the thing they did do is they set up a scholarship for the brewing program at Auburn. So they have a brewers program at
that's
Auburn.
awesome.
So it was specifically to be like it's for people of color. You know, they were trying to do this thing, and which is it's a cool thing. They're trying to access like here's our space that we work in. It clearly lacks some diversity. Let's try and like fix that.
And also, that's the starting point.
Right,
You know,
totally.
in terms
Yep.
of inspiring people to what
Yeah.
they want to do.
I mean, I guess that's a good excuse for having subpar nachos.
But here's the thing. So like because I used to run their social media, I still thought I want to see what like people say or whatever.
you have a vested interest, yeah.
When I ran it, if you ever posted something, so the reason it was Auburn is because Dale went to Auburn. So anytime you post Auburn shit, and I'm from here, so like I don't know how the South works, but
Yeah, I don't think
apparently-
Alabama is racially charged at all.
well, I just mean like so sports. When you talk any college sports, like people from the South lose their fucking minds.
Oh, yeah.
If you are from like
High school, too.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but they do. And so whenever I would mention Auburn on social media, people would just like flame us so hard, just go off on us. So when they post this thing about the Auburn scholarship, I thought for sure there's gonna be a bunch of like, fuck Auburn, blah blah, like Roll Tide, all this dumb Southern like
Sing the
college
Roll
shit.
Tide!
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Derek
Instead,
Stripp commenting.
they were straight up just like this dude, like just racist shit, which I was like, whoa, it's wild to me that these, like, the people who commented skipped shitting on a college, which would be like dumb and who cares. They went straight for like, no, I'm going to show you how like racist
Yeah, they
I am.
leapfrogged it
It's
fast.
wild. I was like, whoa, there's not a thing about
I really
Auburn.
thought you were gonna be like everybody was really cool about it.
No.
And it was gonna be a
Yeah,
happy
that's where I
ending.
thought this was
I was
going to be.
no,
happy
Like,
ending
man,
to
the
the
internet
I was
worked one
expecting
time.
I was expecting Auburn hate, and then when it was like racist, I was like, whoa, these people are not afraid to just come out and say like the wildest, awful shit on here.
And how dare you call him a proud boy for it?
It's just like, oh man, it's wild.
So we can try to end on a high note. No, I'm not dismissing that. That's a really good thing to point out, and something that's worth talking about. And it's important that you guys. I appreciate the fact that you made a point to say socially conscious business, right? Like that makes a difference, and I don't think that's something that a lot of people say. They talk about it as a business. You're one or the other, right? You're either a non-for-profit or you're just straight capitalism. So I think it's important to note that, hey, we're doing the best we can for our community while also being like the best business that we can be. I think that's really awesome. Steve, did you have any other reviews that you wanted? I've got a beer review that I know Brandon got really heated about before we started the podcast that we can end on.
Bring it on.
Or unless you got something ahead of time.
Yeah, here we'll go with this. This is from 11 months ago. I cut off the name of the screenshot I took, so they got lucky. 3 stars. Excellent beer. I had the Coriolis effect. Outstanding IPA. Truly one of the best I've ever tasted.
Did they use the word hubby in this review? Because I'm just feeling that coming on already.
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I'm just a little buzzed, so reading is challenging. Why only 3 stars then? The food. My other half had the nachos. Jeremy! Uh-oh. I think we counted like 10 beans. Why are counting beans is a thing?
Bean
and the
counters.
cheese was MIA. I had the street tacos, smoked
Juice.
brisket.
Got it.
Are you having a laugh?
No?
Maybe having just spent 15 months in North Carolina, I have certain expectations. But the chewy stuff on the
What?
smoked brisket taco was anything but. I'd be back for the IPA, but otherwise, yeah, I'd give the food a very wide berth. Motherfucker, if you want smoked brisket, you gotta go to the fucking North Carolina. Colorado's not known for barbecue by any means.
Colorado's not known for any food.
No, it is
No,
not.
that's
Colorado's
not
known
true.
Yes, it
Green
is.
For the alcohol
chili.
food.
No, it's
Green
not.
chili.
No, it's not.
Yes.
It's a New
Yeah.
Mexico
It's known
thing
for a
that
sauce.
you guys hijacked. Vietnamese food on Federal is fantastic. Other than that,
We're not known for Vietnamese food. We would know. People come to
you're not known
Colorado
for,
and
you
try
didn't even
green
say
chili.
food. We're not known for Vietnamese.
People
We're
come
not-
to Colorado
Yeah,
for
also.
marijuana, skiing, and lots of good beer.
Yes.
Green chili's in there.
Yeah.
I think green chili is a food people
Yeah,
come
the
here for.
hijack.
It's a sauce.
Yeah.
I would
We're
say
known
I
for
would
this
say it's
thing.
more of a soup.
I would say we hijacked it and made it better personally because I like it better than New Mexico's green chili.
Yeah,
Nice.
I agree.
Cool.
But a stew, it's all food.
I
you know?
love the quote of, maybe it's because I'm coming from North Carolina, so I have certain standards. Like,
Yeah.
what standards are
Excuse
those?
me, are these bathrooms multi-gendered? 'Cause
I can't eat my delicious pulled pork sandwich in here if they are.
why aren't there any racist statues on the street?
All right. So
Where are all your deciduous trees?
Ayo. Dark jokes. Corn Tiki.
Yeah.
You got upset about this one. You were like, this is kind of a trigger for me.
Oh no, go for it.
So Corn Tiki, New Image Brewing. This is from Untapped. It's a mead / braggot. Rhymes with a word you can't say anymore. 12% ABV, 10 IBUs, and 3.39 stars or circles, whatever the fuck. I hate Untapped. So this
so
is
much.
whatever it is. I'm gonna read you a couple of reviews.
Yeah, go for it.
This was your lowest rated offering.
Just go for it.
Okay. 3 circles, whatever the fuck. There's a lot going on in this one. Very sweet with hints of coffee. The wife doesn't like it, but it's growing on me.
That was it?
That was it?
Oh.
That was the review? Oh, this was 5. This was 5 circles. This is a fucking adventure and a half. Also incredibly flavorful. All right, Bill and Ted, we get it. Way too sweet for me. This was 2 circles. Felt like I was drinking syrup. Bummer.
That was about me.
I was really excited about this one. And then the last, and probably my favorite, 2.5 circles. Cancel this mead. So as we talk about mead, and it's not a beer, Brandon, is there anything you'd like to say about these Untapped reviews?
It's like I said before, like, the only thing that really frustrates me about this is that I feel like we hear people so often that want to be a part of the woke craft beer community that are like, we just love it when brewers are creative and they push boundaries and they try new stuff. And personally, I mean, ask anyone at New Image. I was fucking stoked when we went to release this
You were
beer.
fired up about this mead.
I was so excited about this beer.
Very medieval of you.
I thought that we had executed it perfectly. I felt like we had really bit off something that was very challenging, technically speaking, and that it tasted exactly how I pictured it from the beginning. I was so stoked on it, and I was determined to not be upset by what people said about it.
But god damn it, that did not happen.
That did not happen because
Fast forward.
I just get so tired of people saying that they love how experimental we are and we love how people in the craft beer community will try new things and like explore new areas. But ultimately, they're just like, yeah, we'd rather you just like shit out another identical IPA that we can rate as a 4.5.
I mean, if you shit it out, it'd be pretty hazy, so that's good.
Yeah. No, it's like it was just disappointing to see.
So people want.
Like,
everybody's looking at me like I'm a weirdo, but people want haze.
It was just disappointing to me to see people, because we've kind of had a couple other things in this vein where it's like it's an area that we're trying to explore, and I don't think people quite gather that it's like we're not a bourbon distillery, we're not a winery making like one white wine and one red wine. Like, there's such a broad spectrum with beer, and like right now there's a huge push for beer to move beyond just like malt beverage product and into this kind of like non-traditionally known as beer space. And this series really, this was a collab beer that we did, but it was sort of the inception point for a new series that we were launching as well, that was seeking to access a new consumer, like a person who isn't necessarily a beer fan. But you have people that are like, I buy all your IPAs and I hate this mead hybrid. It's like, then just like don't.
Well, you get that thing. You get that thing when people they'll give like sours 1 star and they're like, I hate sours, and it's like, well then you don't have to rate it, man. You can just say like I don't like it. But you don't have to fucking rate it.
It's one of the struggles of like the diversity of where craft beer is at this point, is that you get people that are just like, I usually love their stuff, but I don't like this. But it's like, well, like we're normally making sandwiches and this is a pizza. Like I don't know like how to explain this to people, but like you your palate may not lend to every single thing that we create, but that doesn't make our creation invalid. If you're an IPA lover, don't judge our sours. If you love beer, then maybe like take our F&B stuff with a grain of salt. But
Yeah.
and that's the
If
other
you
thing
like
about,
Vietnamese, don't judge our green chili.
yeah,
When I remember when Untapped came out, like I remember it was just like checking a beer and it was dumb and it was fine. That's all it ever needed to be. Once it started making like
drunk with power.
once it was like leave reviews, it's like this whole app's fucking terrible because now what it does is like it fucks the market up for real. Like when you go, so like for example, we started shipping our beer to France with a distributor, and they move it around like Italy and Germany and all this shit, and we also started shipping beer to Japan, and that's literally what people do. They just open up the app and they just look at what the rating is and go, and it's like
Because they don't know any better. That's the
fuck.
thing. It's like, so
Yeah.
usually this correlates deeply with how little information that they
Totally.
have on their own. You know, so
Yeah.
how little they actually know about beer styles, about process, about ingredients, about whatever. They just show up, look at a shelf, and then they start looking up the names because they don't want to take it upon themselves to learn about what makes this beer unique,
Right.
why it would be better than another one. It's just they're just taking everybody else's word for it,
Well,
which
and
has
people-
never been like the appropriate way to consume products.
But
right?
what people used to use, I remember like Rate Beer was like the big one that people used for ratings, but it was because like Rate Beer was an aggregate score of like actual beer journalists. Like it wasn't just random
Sure.
assholes.
people that have tasted
It was like
thousands of
yes,
things.
it was people who know
they
what the
how
fuck
to
they're talking
articulate
about.
People that are like,
Yeah.
what's the closest thing you have to Bud Light every time?
Right,
they visit
yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. And that's like you know, like I don't know if you've ever seen there's an Instagram account, Untapped What the Fuck,
No.
where all they do is he just goes on and just finds the dumbest people on Untapped who do that kind of shit where there's like, I hate sours, 1 star.
Right.
You know, it's that kind of stuff that you wouldn't have that back in the day on Rate Beer because it was all people who were, you know, for better or for worse, like BJCP certified people, but they knew what the fuck they were talking about.
Sure, but even when people probably
But better than random dude. Like
Kind
better
of,
than like
yeah.
random.
kind of, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Is that it was the shithead of the day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like at that point in time, it was a different shithead. Now you're dealing with.
that
a
sounds like
new
something your server would
shithead.
explain as a special, like in our shithead of the day is the salmon.
Ooh, that sounds good. I'll have that.
I'll have that.
No, so you actually didn't read the review that I hated the most about that particular beer from Untapped. And the thing that, like, of all of the, you know, the low and high and whatever, and it's always frustrating when something's polarizing, and if you scroll through that one, you'll notice there's a lot of 5s and there's a lot of 1s, which is always really frustrating because you're like, a certain group of people that liked this loved it.
Yeah.
And a certain group of people that didn't get it hated it. But, you know, just don't rate something you hate. Like, I don't eat pizza, so I would not go to a pizza restaurant and say, 1 star, I hate pizza.
Yeah.
Again, to your point.
Rating systems became a
review
way for
that-
people to feel self-important.
What if we started a system where we rate comedians on a scale?
You should be able to rate customers, if nothing else. You should
Did
rate
not
other
like-
Deeply
comedians,
just got
you should
so
be able to
excited.
rate customers.
So the one review that really about that particular beer that made me really upset was someone said it tastes like they just threw everything they had laying around in this beer, very badly executed. And I was like, I created 2 new vendor relationships just to make this beer happen, and like people don't quite realize that that's like a frustrating thing to do. So like go from just your normal channels for supply chain to like filling out multiple credit contracts, going through all this like steps. One of the vendors, like, they don't even like ship stuff, so I had to like create a freight account in addition in order to create a BOL in order to ship the product that I needed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like to have this just like completely just totally invalid bullshit statement that's like implicit too of like my ethics as a creator
Sure.
just infuriated me because it's like, look, this is built on a profile that has been around since the early 20s. Like, this isn't a random thing I came up with. It's based on a distinct thing that we sought to emulate, and we did it pretty fucking well. And it just drives me nuts how people, one, are simultaneously so dumb and yet so entitled. They think their opinion matters so much, and like, I don't know, it's weird to me because I'm so careful to try to not speak out of turn on issues I don't know about because I live in constant fear of being humiliated when I'm wrong on something that I just simply do not know about. But most of the people that fill out reviews are the opposite of that. They're just like,
Yeah.
is there anything that, like, any
I
litmus
mean-
I could possibly use to be objective? Fuck that. Let's just write my opinion right now.
One of the main reasons we do this podcast is to show all there's so many, it's almost endless, the correlations between the comedy industry in the craft beer industry. And to me, that's like having a very good set and you crush. And then you hear the one person coming out of the show that's like, I fucking hated that guy. He sucked.
And that's the
you're
one
just
that
like-
sticks with you.
And that's the one that sticks with you every single time.
Or it's like if you're killing, having great set, you always hone in on the one guy that's got his arms crossed.
It's just arms crossed, not having a good time.
Not laughing,
And that's
his
who
wife
that
dragged
person
him
is.
out,
Yeah.
whatever
That's
the fuck.
exactly who that person is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they just fought in the car. It's not even your problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the person leaving you the shitty review just fought in the car.
Yeah.
Remember that. Before we get out of here, tell everybody, like, what's the deal with the brewery right now in terms of, like, what people can do, can't do, like, what you guys are selling, and that sort of thing.
You can come enjoy beer on the patio.
Wear a mask.
You cannot berate our staff with bigoted comments and
Still can't
threats
smoke
of
on the
violence.
patio.
And you
Still
still
can't
can't
smoke on the patio.
That's been a thing since I was like a child. But and some would say that I still am a child. But nonetheless, it's a reality. You just can't smoke in places at all. Like I don't know. It's not Mad Men. Anyway.
But you guys have, like, everything's available on draft, not a limited COVID menu at this point.
Yeah, you know, honestly, it's still kind of hit or miss. It's still really hard to like.
We have like 15 draft lines, so we put out 1 or 2 beers a week.
Yeah,
so,
but you got to be able to sell, like, you can't just throw a bunch of shit up there if you're not moving through.
No,
that
totally.
much
And that's the thing is we've got 15 to 16 beers on tap, but we have pretty much everything we put out is in the can. So like we've got a stacked can list. There's like 30 something beers that you
it's
can
also
grab
good.
to go.
Yeah, no, it's still like a weird line we have to toe right now because like we want to fill kegs, but at the same time, like Polish just closed nightclubs yesterday, and I don't know what other kind of bars he was referring to
Steve
with
is
that.
heartbroken.
Beta, yeah. Did you see Beta?
Yeah, I saw that
But-
video.
Yeah.
I thought Beta closed years ago
I
too,
did.
which is like,
You know, it's tough right now for us to justify filling more kegs than we can foreseeably move
Yeah, it doesn't
through
make any
in,
sense.
in a week.
restaurants are buying kegs because restaurants are sure they're not going to have to shut down again.
Totally.
Yeah,
Like,
Why
would you buy,
hold on to something? Yeah.
And you know, like our supply chain's still really weird. Like, you know, even Cisco, a huge food distributor we've been working with forever, like they've had to really like kind of adapt and change and try to like make do during this time. So it's like, I don't know, like things are what they are right now. If you want to get out inside your house, like just be happy to be in somebody else's space and like leave it at that. And we're trying to be as hospitable as we can, but also like safety still matters. This shit isn't fake. And like honestly, like whatever your opinion is on it, like we don't really get to decide. Like we're at, you know, the same department that could come in and tell us to stop serving food because our cooler hit 41 degrees instead of 40 is the one telling us make people wear masks. So that's just what we're.
That's a great way to put it too. Like,
I don't think
it's
people
it's a
realize-
1 degree, and also I heard another comic explain it too. It's like if wearing a mask only has a 1% chance of saving somebody's life, I'm still gonna wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I heard a thing the other day that was like, they compared it to like if you're in a rainstorm and the mask is like your umbrella. Like once you're not getting wet, you're like, well, time to get rid of this umbrella. Like you just keep it up. You're like, no, it's still fucking
Yeah.
raining. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep this up.
Yeah.
What are you guys' regular hours here right now?
3 to 10 on weekdays and 12 to 10 on weekends.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Grab cans of Coriolis Effect. Grab cans of Llama Bite. Come by, support these guys. Their nachos are way better than Oscar Blues.
Agreed.
And we are so grateful that you guys came on the show.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Yeah,
you
thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Appreciate it.
Steve, is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, we are doing some live shows. Just follow Rotating Tap on Instagram, Facebook for more info.
Yep.
They're gonna
We've
be
been doing bi-weeklies at Flight Co.
bi-weeklies of Flyco, Landlocked. We have some new breweries coming on board that we haven't worked with yet, so that's very exciting.
Yeah,
So
looking forward to it.
check that out. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us.
That's
Let's
a good
get out of
place
here
to
before
call
let's get out of here
it.
before this loud ass garbage truck
Cool.
comes.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Have a good day.
I've been listening to so much Behind the Bastards that I just thought, products!